Oh no.
Congratulations on tuning into the Anytime Show. I'm your host, Dustin Dye. My guest today is self-defense guru and and recognized expert Marc Animal MacYoung. So Marc is the author of 20 to 30 books. Even he's not sure. The newest of which is called Multiple Attackers: Your Guide to Recognition, Avoidance, and Survival. And where can people buy that book?
It's all on Amazon.
It's all on Amazon. So wherever better books are sold. He's also done
I wouldn't go that far. I've seen some of the stuff that they produce.
where a whole range of books are sold, and he's done videos, and he's also the co-author of the No Nonsense Self Defense blog. So, Marc, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
So, by way of introduction, how did you get the nickname Animal?
Well, my normal response is that by doing all the stupid and dangerous things you have to do to get that name. And basically, I grew up in the streets of Los Angeles, and yeah, I wasn't the most nice person. And I did a lot of stuff that was really extreme, and you know, I was very good at violence, and that kind of, after a couple incidents, and some of my behavior, people went, "Man, he's an animal." So it kind of stuck.
So, it's not because you're cute and cuddly.
Oh, I got that too. It's just, have you ever dealt with a ferret?
No.
Okay. First cousins to wolverines.
Okay.
And ferrets are very, very happy, bouncy critters until they cop an attitude, whereupon it's like, whoa. I mean, I've seen a cat be held off by a cornered rat, for about 15 minutes. A ferret walks up and it'll spend about 30 seconds, and most of that is deciding if he's hungry or not. Whereupon all of a sudden this cute, fuzzy, warm, friendly little critter just goes, and the rat's dead, done. So, as a friend of ours, Bob Orlando, said to my wife, it's like, why do you have ferrets? You married one. So, yeah, cute and cuddly. I got a lot of miles on cute and cuddly, but I also got a lot of miles out of being really good at violence.
Given your public platform, I think your explanation makes more sense. Um, so let's get into popular misconceptions about violence. Right now, I see almost a gleeful embrace of violence, even by some of my friends who, frankly, probably never got into a fight before, but they think that violence is sometimes the answer for when you don't agree with someone. So, what is the reality of violence?
You just asked a very simple question that is about, this big, right?
I got time.
Yeah. Guy named, I think it was Joseph Schrumppeter, made a comment. He goes, half of my money in advertisement is wasted. I just don't know which half. Okay. Pretty much half of what everybody thinks is about violence is wrong. Actually, way more, but they don't know which half. We have a rather bizarre situation that our modern society has removed our understanding of violence. Violence is a human attribute. It is very natural. It is very normal. The problem with any attribute is that it can be twisted. So how much do we, because the way we look at society now, or the way society has us looking at life now, is way different than life has been previous. And our modern world has really skewed our perceptions of violence. And one of the bigger problems is the people who are telling us about violence have no clue. Okay, let's talk about domestic violence. Oh, no, man, you know, women are always the victim. Oh, right. I have a firm belief that any so-called expert in domestic violence needs to live in a trailer park for a year. Okay, the ground truth is way different than what we're being told. And that is in academia. That is the, you know, I mean, people who tell you about what violence, I'm an expert, I understand this kind of violence. It's like, yeah, but have you ever won a fight? Or you just always lost one? Okay. That, and add to that, in science, there are certain ethics that you cannot do. So it's kind of like you can't really study violence without knowing certain things, and those are excluded from the academic research on violence. Now, that's from the top up. More realistically, you know, most people, humans, believe it or not, are amazingly nonviolent animals individually, right?
We're self-domesticated, only self-domesticated animals.
Yes, and okay, I had a cat named Ninja, right? Now, he made it to a ripe old age. And, you know, I'm 60 years old right now. And yet, in my life, with all the violence and stuff that I've been in, Ninja he'd killed more. He'd been in more life and death. He'd been in more fights. I mean, this cat, indoor, outdoor cat, right, had way more experience with violence than my 60 years. Why?
Animal instinct, I guess.
Right. But the other thing is, Ninja would tell you that he was not happy, right? He'd hiss once and then he'd strike. Okay. The reason humans are so non-violent is that we have better communication skills. We talk things out. We deal with this. Now, here's the weird thing. Even though humans are non-violent, we really are bad at threatening violence.
Also,
right? Not like we suck at it, but we do it all the time. What? Don't you mess with me, right? There's an entire thing called threat displays or display aggression, depends on, you know, what source. That is basically sending the message of, I'm not attacking now, but I might. If you don't change what you're doing, I will attack. That's, you know, that's the thing. But we really actually seldom engage in violence. But we threaten it all the time. And because of that, we also have, and this ties back to, you know, half everything you know is wrong. We get our experience, quote marks, from about violence from movies, right? And a lot of the stuff that we see in movies is just total fantasy out to lunch. So that's where, and we go, oh, well, I know the difference. Really? What half? Okay, like you ever seen in real life a shotgun blast or, you know, somebody getting shot and they fly backwards?
I haven't seen that.
No, bullets don't have that power.
I'd imagine your nervous system would go into shock and you'd collapse.
It's not the size of the bullet, it's what's behind the bullet. Most people, when they've been shot by a pistol, describe it as it felt like they got punched. So that's what it feels like to get shot. All right. Now, if you've got little bullet in front with a very big cartridge full of powder, that's got enough energy to shut down the nervous system temporarily. Okay. That's why when people get shot with carbines, right? Which, by the way, here's an example of stupid shit that you. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this family friendly.
Oh, I'm gonna check. Not made for children. So
Yeah, just go ahead and do that. How many times have you seen TV where the guy has access to a carbine or a rifle and then, throws it away and runs around with his pistol? Okay. No professional in the world is going to do that. It's like, hey, carbines got more stopping power than pistols, right? But everybody thinks, oh yeah, you'll just, the hero, he always drops the carbine and takes his pistol, right? And he goes charging and aren't I tough? And it's like, no, that's actually kind of stupid, right? And then you can ask how many times it's like, why, look at these situations where they actually end up dropping their guns and they have to fight.
okay, that's more exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's very visually exciting, and that's where we get a lot of our misconceptions about robberies and violence, and we think this is it. And people control the words, and it's like, oh no, if you punish a child, it's abuse, right? Or if you hit somebody, it's abuse. It's like, no, I mean, the problem is words have meaning, right? And I've gotten really anal about this because I deal with lawyers so often. But when you just kind of call anything and everything, something that it isn't, that confuses people. So if you have a clear understanding of what violence is, you can tell when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about with the subject.
I wanted to get a bit more into the movie aspect. You worked in the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Can you summarize your involvement in the industry?
I was in the art department, set dresser. So I was an interior decorator.
Oh, fun.
Right. But basically, I'm the guy that loaded up the truck, brought the stuff to the set, took the stuff out of the set, put my stuff in, then took that stuff out and put the other stuff back, which basically it was like a blend between a home decorator and a moving company driver. So that's, I mean, set dressing, all the stuff that is, well, God, what was it? Charlie Band? I can't remember the guy's name right now, but old cigar smoking guy, right? Really raspy voice. And somebody had done the set, and it's like, we put the wallpaper upside down, and he goes, if the audience is looking at the wallpaper, there's something wrong with the movie.
True.
So yeah, a lot of the stuff with set dressing is to do a backdrop that nobody notices because they're looking at the people, right? They don't care what's happening behind, and if they are, it's a bad movie.
Okay.
So yeah, my job was to make sure that people didn't notice what I did.
Good. So, I mean, people aren't noticing what I'm doing either. So, but that's less intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So, going on into movies, we talked a bit about it, but how are some ways movies get violence correct? Or do you know of movies that do accurately portray violence?
Yes. There are really good examples of movies that do get it right, and then other movies that are just so horribly bad, right? Yes, I talked about the weapon being dropped, so then they have to duke it out. The only series that I ever saw that addressed that was Leverage, where their goon, their fighter, made it a consistent thing. I don't like guns because they're done at the wrong range, yada 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 yada, and he'd prefer to go hand to hand, right? So yeah, it's fantasy, but it's like, look, he gave a good, reasonable, the question that you asked is so vast, starting with the fact that there are different types of violence. Different types of violence have different rules, they have different goals, they have different outcomes. And when you get people who don't understand it, they try and write this as that. And it really, they blow it badly, because violence is actually, once you understand it, it's very predictable. Okay. And once you know the type you're dealing with, you know what works and what doesn't work. So, like, one of the examples of a movie that really got it right was Open Range, right? Where you have this gang of guys and they have a gunslinger, right, who shot one of these guys' friends. And Kevin Costner's character walks up and says, "Are you the one who killed our friends?" And he goes, "Yeah, and I liked it." And he's looking at all his buddies, and they're like, "Yeah, he's our big bad guy." And Costner's character just drills him right between the eyes. Right? No warning, no posturing, no, right? That actually is right when you're dealing with two professionals, right? And this one guy did a non-professional thing and gloated, and he got his brains blown out, right? So that type of violence is very real. It does exist. And to establish a character along those lines takes work. You know, some of the other things, if you watch like oh Lord, not Leonardo DiCaprio, the Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
There was a really, yeah, it's the 1980s. Olivia de Hussey, I think was her name.
Okay, so it's not the newer Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, there was like a friend of his. They were kind of goofing and with this other guy, and he gets stabbed and he dies. Right. And what had been a duel for show where everybody's making blue, oh yeah, look at this. When Romeo hears that his friend has been killed, he comes in with the stone cold intent to kill. I think it's Tybalt. Yeah, it was Tybalt. Tybalt killed Mercutio, his friend. And when you see this blind rage with intent to kill, they got it right. In Romeo and Juliet, of all things. Okay, and I mean, he kills Tybalt, so but the other thing is how much of violence is for show. It's not a fight. If I say fight and combat, those are two totally different things. So there are movies that actually get them right if you know what you're looking at. Right. And I mean, I love teaching people, like, yeah, go watch this movie because they get it right here. Right. And it really, we humans are visual and audio learners. So when we see something and we see it the right way, we go, oh, okay. It hits us on a very visceral level. But if we see something that's fake, we don't quite have that same, we don't have the, no, that ain't right feeling. Okay. An older movie that I really loved for this one, I love this one scene, was John Travolta in Urban Cowboy, where he's like, almost, he's trying to get in a fight, which would be a bar fight for him. And, people pull him back, and John Glenn character is standing there with his hand behind his back. And as they're pulling it away, they cut back to, this guy's a convict, but they have him fold, he's folding a knife that he's been holding behind his back. Right. That's an example of real Hollywood getting it right. But they do it so rarely.
I think there's a distinction between violence and action. So people, I mean, it's obvious Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is not like an accurate depiction of a sword fight, but I think people might see a movie like Kill Bill where obviously the ending was over the top, but there's a part where she's um, beating this guy named Buck, who was like this orderly, and she's like smashing his head, smashing a door into his head, and he just kind of lays there and takes it. And I think I remember when I saw it in the theater, someone goes, "Why doesn't he fight back?" And I think that's the common misperception that I see is that people aren't expecting the that if you punch someone, there's going to be a consequence.
That is a big one. That is a huge issue. And, you know, basically to understand violence, you have to understand there's different types and there's different levels. Okay. There's a time and place for this one or this one. And there are consequences. I mean, one of the things that you see repeatedly in movies is like, say, a cop shoots somebody and he's back on the job the next day.
No administrative leave.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's not, I mean, he's back again. Um, you know, you see people getting in a fight and you don't see them getting arrested. Okay. All these things of I can do this and you can't do back to me is another one, which is, you know, hey, I got news for you. Fighting hurts. Violence hurts. Even if you win. Okay. I mean, I've been through some really bad, I mean, for 3-4 days, you're limping. Okay. And it's like, yeah, that's, you know, I won that fight. Right. Although years ago, I used to study Wing Chun at a studio that my Sifu shared with Danny and Asanto. Right. Monday, Wednesdays was his night. Tuesday, Thursday was Danny's. Well, I was working a shift job, so my weekend was a different day, and you know, went in to pay my my fees on an off day because I was leaving for the weekend or my weekend. Well, a couple of nights before, I had been in a fight with a biker in a pool hall. Okay, now I came out the bathroom door and he muckled onto me. You know, I was like, oh, and like my back pushed the push bar on the door. Okay, so here I have like a 200-pound biker trying to eat my face, and he's using my back to open the door. So I was a little bit sore.
I'd say so.
Hmm?
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I didn't lose that fight, but I certainly didn't win it. Okay, because it was an ambush and people saw it, came out, broke us up. So I'm kind of limping, and I walk into the school, and there's this guy in the back room, and you know, he studies under Danny and Asanto. And he goes, you know, he didn't like what I look like, which, you know, hey, that happened a lot. And he's like, what are you doing here? And it's like, I'm here to pay class fees for Hawkins. And it was like, well, okay, I guess I can't throw you out. You can try. So he noticed I was moving weird. And he goes, what happened to you? And it's like, I got in a fight. And the dude looked at me and goes, if you knew Jeet Kune Do, you would have won that fight. And I went, Argh! And every bruise, every ache, every pain that I had suddenly went, ah! Right. So it was like,
No.
right. You know, and I mean, that's the kind of pain you can expect. Right. And it's just, sorry, kids, actual violence hurts. You know, and the idea of, oh, it'll be like in the movie that I'll just do this and it'll fall down. No, no, no. You know, so I mean, there's so many different ways people get the idea of what violence is wrong because of the movies, right? And that's their main source of information.
Do you think these martial arts classes help? I mean, if someone's experienced with violence, all they know is from the movies, and then they take a self-defense class. My concern is the temptation to escalate things to perhaps a lethal level is something that's tempting, and they might not even consider going in.
Let me put it to you this way. If you have to have, or if you have to use your martial arts training, you only have one of two problems. One is it doesn't work. The other is it does.
I think I understand what you mean, but elaborate on both.
Yeah, well, you know, gee, somebody's using your butt as a mop. Your sister, it wasn't working. The other thing is you actually do win, and the Mr. Policeman comes up and wants to talk to you about this. Say, Jenna Meek and I wrote a book called What You Don't Know Can Kill You. And it's all the stuff that isn't taught, right, in classes. And one of the starting points is martial arts are not self-defense. Okay, martial arts are basically training how to fight. Self-defense is not style specific. It's a legal concept. Okay. So if I am attacked, I do have the right to defend myself. What I do not have is the right to fight with somebody. It's called mutual assault or consensual combat, depends on what state you're in. And most of what people think is self-defense is actually them getting into a fight or getting into an argument that escalates to physical. And if you were, okay, officially the term is you were a participant in the creation and escalation of a conflict that became physical, right? That's legal speak. More realistically, if you're in a fight, you're part of the problem. Okay, two people, what Rory Miller calls the monkey dance, a wonderful term. Self-defense tends to be that you didn't participate in creating the situation. Like you walk into your car and this guy comes up to mug you, right? Well, that's different than the guy like Raul Rodriguez down in Texas who left his property. There was a party going on, karaoke, which, that could drive anybody to kill. But they're having a grand old time. And he called the cops. Cops showed up. Things toned down. Didn't totally stop, but, he decided that wasn't enough. So he got his pistol and he walked down the street and he was recording it. Okay. Long story short, he shot 3 guys, one of whom died. Right. Now, his thing is he also was recording himself with his little phone. And that, how the hell did that happen? Hang on. He's standing there and he's I'm in fear for my life. Pow, 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 pow. Right. Well, the way the Texas law was interpreted is that he left his property in pursuit of a quarrel. Okay. So I got murder rap. Got assigned for 40 years. He appealed because he was defending himself. Right. And after the appeal, it's like, you know what? This is now a life sentence. So a lot of it, violence is a lot more than just physical, right? Unfortunately, so much of what is trained, what is taught out there as martial arts self-defense, which they've kind of smeared the two words together, they're not, is, it's going to get you put in jail, right? Because they only focus on the physical. And this doesn't matter if it's martial arts or shooting world, right? The book Jen and I wrote about it is like, understand there are three parts of this process. There's what happens before, there's the physical, and then there's the aftermath. And what you do here will determine if physical happens at all, but especially is going to have something to do if you win. Don't be Raul Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So look towards the legal issues of what is the appropriate use of force. Okay. I was in a martial arts school, a commercialized school. I walked in and I saw the head instructor teaching people how to do a neck break from behind on a downed opponent.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's completely irresponsible.
He saw that, or he was doing that, and he looked up and he saw me going, right? And he says, yes, but this is only for self-defense. No!
If you're coming up from someone from behind,
Yeah.
you down, that is straight up murder.
Yeah. Hello. But people, they trust their instructor without vetting to see if the instructor understands, hey, if you do this, you're either going to get put in prison or you're going to go to get sued.
Okay. Hey, what state did you pass the bar exam in?
Well,
instructor.
No, that's a whole nother problem over there, by the way, which, believe me when I tell you, the most terrifying thing is, well, okay, let me put it to you this way. I was working a murder case, and he was charged with murder. And the attorney was like, I don't know why he's not taking the plea deal. He was charged with murder. They're offering manslaughter. And I mean, the guy was going to do like 20 years. Right. And I looked at him and the attorney was just like, I don't know why he's not taking the deal. And I said, because it really was self-defense. And the attorney goes, really? Wait a minute. What? You don't know that having a super drunk concrete cutter. I don't know if you're familiar with that field.
No.
Yeah, these guys palm chunks of concrete. Right? I mean, these guys have paws that are just incredible. Well, you had a concrete cutter jump through a bonfire, tackle this guy, knock the air out of him, sitting on his chest, and was strangling him. Right? And it's like, yeah, it was self-defense, not the concrete cutter, because the guy stabbed and killed the concrete cutter. But the attorney was, really? He had no idea his client was in danger.
From being choked by a massive guy on the ground? No.
Yeah.
How did that case turn out?
Actually, that was fascinating because what happened, okay, I was talking to a lawyer and I said, look, a lawyer's like a bouncer. Okay. You don't want him fighting. You want him to keep problems from happening. But if it happens, he'll fight for you. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good way of, well, one of the things about my expert witness work is mostly what happens is it's a slam dunk for the prosecutor, right? And they are not interested in offering a good deal, right? But I come rolling in and it's like, look, the attorney goes, look, I got an expert here that says it was self-defense. So now the prosecutor, who by the way has to answer to his boss if he loses, right, has got a fight on his hand. So a lot of times what happens is I come rolling in and the prosecutor goes, you know what? You know that really bad plea deal I offered? How about I make a much nicer one for you? Right. So it's like, cool, no problem. You know, the guy takes it, you know, I'm done. Other cases go to court. So the prosecutor made a really sweet deal on that one. So, you know, unintentional homicide, I believe, you know, but the lowest level. So, and the guy just did time served. So, yeah, that's how our court system works. And the more you get into it, the more, yeah.
I think my strategy is going to be to avoid the court system as well as I can.
Avoidance is really, really good. And I mean, that's part of the new book I'm writing on, which safety shouldn't be scary, or doesn't have to be scary, is recognize that crime and violence are a process. And if you know the process, you can actually work it earlier and not have to do anything, or, you know, no physical violence. Okay. Some of the best stories I have that I'm most proud of are when I didn't engage in violence. Okay. And I mean, that's my professional thing too, which is, yes, I'm famous for my violence, but what made me good at it was talking things down. Avoiding it. But see, the problem is, okay, we did some testing and we figured out from the moment you come onto a bad guy's radar to when you're looking down the barrel of a gun is about a minute. Okay.
You have 1 minute to get out.
What?
So you have 1 minute to sort of de-escalate or get out.
Recognize what's going on, counter it, etc. And the closer you get to the end, the less options you have and the more violent they're going to have to be. Okay. Or you just say, I lost. Okay, got it. You know. And the problem is people with their awareness, you must have situational awareness. Now, you may have noticed a little contempt there.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
Yeah, okay, good. The problem is, okay, there comes a point of no return where no matter what, you're going to lose. Okay, just deal with it, kids. That's life. And the problem is, so many people ask me questions about what do you do, where it's not, I mean, here's the time for all the what do you do's. What they're asking is like, oh, okay, so I'm putting my kid into, or my grandson into the car, and this is an actual quote and question. And I look up and somebody's got a gun on me. What do I do? You give them your money, right? If it's a robbery, that's a type of violence. It's a resource predation. They're going to give you instructions how to avoid getting shot. Okay, you accept that you lost. Okay, at that point in time, right? But in the shooting world, there's this big thing, and God, Jenna hates it when I say it. Quick straw. All right. I'm sorry. There was a guy named Quick Straw, or a cartoon called Quick Straw McGraw.
Okay.
Right. And, you know, the guy was or the horse was incompetent, but the idea of doing a quick draw or speed draw, because you're going to, you need to react so fast, right? They're focusing on solving this problem when the early, if you'd seen it 50 seconds earlier, you could have done something other than trying to outdraw a guy who's got a gun on you, which, by the way, doesn't work. All the videos that I've watched where somebody gets a gun pulled on them and they, quote, win, or that a gun is deployed and the guys win, is number one, the bad guy is looking in another direction and he doesn't see the person pulling the gun. Okay. Or the person comes in from another room and shoots the dude. But looking down the barrel of a gun and beating him to the draw doesn't work. You're going to lose. But it's being taught.
Yes, that's every Western. Everyone thinks they're Wyatt Earp.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not a quick draw. But, the idea of what's being taught is fantasy solutions to fantasy problems. Okay. Looking down the barrel of a gun, it's too late. Okay. And, the mindset that these people have of, well, I've seen it in the movies. If I practice hard enough, I can get good. You ever heard of the Dead Man's 10?
No.
Old West term. It's the 10 seconds that somebody who can be fatally wounded can still kill you back.
Okay.
He's got 10 seconds. Right? Now, that's not exactly right, but it's, the idea of I go, pew, right? Ha-ha, I shot you first. And you haven't done anything but you haven't done anything to keep him from shooting you back. And he's got time before that bullet takes effect. See, so, when you ask what's wrong with what most people think about violence, it's like, I got a Library of Congress worth of stuff on that one.
So what's perhaps the most common form of violence that your average person would encounter? Someone who doesn't go around looking for fights, and what would the avoidance be? I know in the mugging situation you just described, you hand over your money, but there are other situations you might.
Yes. I'm going to backtrack a bit to get some information here out there. Rory Miller came up with a model about violence that I really, really like. Violence can be divided into two broad categories: social and asocial violence. There. Now, something that I observed, and this is really, really important, like, take a Marc's lot and write it on your forehead. Overwhelmingly, violence comes with instructions how to avoid it. Okay? He's going to tell you what to do to avoid violence. Okay?
This is the more social form of violence?
Actually, hold on. Don't jump ahead yet.
Okay.
Because it's a very valid question, but we got to get the background first. Okay. Social violence is over social goals. Okay. They're about how people treat you. They're about, your self-respect. They're about the rules. They're about resource distribution and labor distribution. I mean, have you ever worked with somebody who is just really, really happy about letting you do his job?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's like, no, division of labor is, I mean, growing up as a kid, how many times did you get yelled at by mom when she came in and your stuff was all over the place?
Daily.
Mom's job is to pick it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, mom's got a different opinion about that. So there's all these really fascinating reasons, including, by the way, punishment. Okay. And I got to be very specific. Roy pointed this out, is that punishment is actually a very ritualized process. Okay. And once you understand that there are limits, there's ritualized steps to punishment. When people use the word abuse interchangeably, you go, no, that's wrong. Roy has a term called an educational beatdown. Okay. That's not exactly punishment, but it is the person has violated a rule, has violated a standard of behavior, and you're going to teach them the error of their ways. Okay. I tell you that because there's a weird thing about conflict. And again, remember how I said most humans are mostly nonviolent? Okay. We use our words as weapons. You know, we're back and forth in it. But again, I could get violent here. Don't mess with me. The most common form of violence somebody is going to encounter would be a very low-level educational beatdown. Okay, because part of this is what you'll see is two people arguing. Okay, and I called it Escalado in my earlier books, but they're both trying to outbluster each other. See how serious I am? Oh, you don't want to mess with me. I'm serious. Often what will happen is somebody will step up and it's like they're bluffing. They don't want to do the violence, but they want what they want. But so they're not backing down. So they're pushing the gas and brake at the same time. So they're making this huge monkey dance. The most common form of violence is somebody who's yelling, howling, and screaming, right? If getting in your face doesn't back you off, doesn't scare you, doesn't get you to retreat, what they'll do is that they'll often step up, strike once, and then step back and start screaming again. Okay? This is not a committed attack. This is not a beating. Okay? So most people are going to be physically attacked during an argument. Okay? That is because, like, the numbers vary depending on what source it is, but a vast majority of violence, of killings, beatings, rapes, etc., are done by people the person knows. Okay? It's not really shocking because, hey, who are you most likely to get in conflict with? Somebody you know.
Yeah.
Right? So the question, it's funny because the type of violence you're likely to get involved in is the type of violence that you didn't listen to the instructions on how to avoid it. Okay. When somebody says you better shut your mouth, he is not asking you to comment about his mother's sexual habits with a mule. Believe me, that is not a request. Okay. But we have a thing called self-soothing. And that is when we feel emotionally upset, we have to do something to calm ourselves down. Unfortunately, a lot of that comes from verbally being hostile. So it's like, you better shut up or I'm going to kick your butt. I'm going to self-soothe like, oh yeah, well, go ahead and try it.
Yeah.
Right. So my ego gets involved. So, you know, a short version of this is what's the most likely? Well, most likely kind of violence is one where your ego kept you in the situation. If somebody says, you better leave or I'm going to kick your ass, there's always, when I tell people the instructions are legitimate, there's always somebody in the audience who goes, well, what if they're not? Well, okay, fine. That does occasionally happen. But again, vast majority, like 95% of the time when that doesn't work, it's because A, they didn't leave, right? This is not a, hey, get out of here or I'm going to kick your ass. Give me 20 minutes to think about that, right? No. Staying there and arguing with the guy, that's not on the table. The other thing that is the wrong way to handle it is to watch, it's like, well, okay, but I think you're a real dick and I'm going to call the cops, and I mean, but I was leaving. Yeah, you were threatening to call the cops, right? So the most common kind of violence that you're going to find yourself in is the kind of violence that comes about because you were so dedicated that you had to win. You had to get the last word in. Right?
Word. Yeah, the last word.
Yeah. Like I said, humans are generally like, if somebody, you walk into a biker bar and one of the guys walks up and says, you better leave. This is not the time to say, well, I got the right to be here. Right? So, have you ever heard of Nicole Dufresne?
No.
Nicole Dufresne, and she just got apart or something, and she and her friends were out celebrating. They ran into a gang. The guy had pistol whipped her boyfriend, said, give me your money, etc., and they got it. Well, Nicole had to self-soothe because the guy's still standing there, and she goes, well, you got what you wanted. What, why don't you leave? What are you going to do now? Shoot us? Why, yes. Yes, as a matter of fact. The problem is most people do not have experience handling themselves under adrenaline. Now, if I could set up a time machine, go back and talk to Nicole Dufresne and ask her, would you ever be so stupid to say that to a guy who had just pistol whipped your boyfriend, has a gun on you, and she's like, no, that, and she'd be insulted. But under adrenaline, that's what she did. Okay. So you've got this adrenaline rush that we do things that work in social violence, right? Escalate. Now, all those reasons for the thing of the overwhelming desire to win, or how dare you, I refuse to be humiliated. Those are conflicts that we get into that are what we call the monkey brain takes over, right? So, yeah, you could call it ego, but what's the most likely type of violence somebody's going to get involved in? Well, the kind of violence where your monkey brain takes over. Okay, that one, and it's like, you really shouldn't have said that about his mother. Just trust me on that. The overwhelming urge to win will also give you that. Or asocial violence is not social violence. It has totally different goals. These, yeah, okay, the rules, you're messing with the hierarchy, all this you can understand. Resource violence can be understood as something that can be put into a wheelbarrow. Okay. So what is the goal of resource violence? Give me your wallet. Okay, I can put that in a wheelbarrow. Resource violence is weird, and part of the reason why we don't understand it anymore is we're not down on the farm anymore. Okay. Have you ever killed and eaten anything?
No.
Okay. Well, then the next
fish. Fish. Fish.
Okay. There, you've done it. You've killed something. You've killed it and eaten it. Have you ever been in a situation where if you didn't kill something, you didn't eat?
No.
I have. That's why I don't hunt, by the way, because it's like one of those things of I've been there where this is. I like going to the supermarket and getting my meat. Okay. There's a different mindset. There's a different consciousness coming with taking a living animal, killing it, and preparing it and eating it. Okay, it wakes an awareness in us that many of us have lost. Okay, I went. We were driving to Minnesota, and we called our host in Iowa, and it's like, hey, what's with all these goofy ass little, George Washington's second cousin, twice removed, slept here, Abner P. What's his nuts, Memorial Museum, and I mean, itty bitty little things. And we called our host and said, hey, what's going on with all these little goofy museums? And he goes, don't worry, they go away after you get in Minnesota, right? And I'm thinking, okay, cool. We crossed the Minnesota line on 35, and the first thing we see, the Spam Museum.
That's more worthy.
Roy and I look at each other. Oh, we got to go. Right? So we went to the Spam Museum, which is actually kind of fascinating. I'm a nerd. What can I say? One of the things that I found there is 18,000 pigs a day go into the Hormel factory, the facility, and come out as little cans of Spam a day, right? We are the only animal on this planet that has industrialized our predation. Okay. Resource violence is a different type of violence. It's got totally different scripts, totally different rules, totally different mindset. Okay. I'm going to ask you to do something.
Sure.
Hold up your arm. Let them. Oh, look, there's a mosquito on your arm. What do you do? Okay, you shake it off. Oh, it's still there. What did you just do there?
I slapped it.
Right. Without hesitation, you killed the mosquito. Right? Did you? Man, you're pissing me off, mosquito. You keep that up, I'm going to kick your ass. All right, mother. You go. I'm telling you. I'm serious.
I could have.
Why not?
Why not? Because it doesn't understand.
Hmm?
Because a mosquito obviously doesn't understand and won't go.
Okay.
Yell at it.
One of the things, first of all, social violence has scripts. Very predictable, right? And like what I just did is I was trying to treat the mosquito like it was social violence, right? All the huffing and puffing, rah, 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 which was to what? Avoid violence. Okay. On the other hand, one thing that I adjusted Rory's model because there's two types of resource violence. One is resource predation. The other is resource protection, both of which are just totally different. That mosquito was resource protection. Okay, because you can climb and sit into a wheelbarrow. Okay, look at the difference of violence. Okay, resource, as I said, is a different type of violence. Now, here's where, going back to the question you asked, resource violence also has, with humans, instructions how to avoid. But here's the weird thing about social violence is I'm telling you, it's not working, then I attack. Okay? Weird thing about resource violence, predation, is it pretends to be normal, pretends to be something else. The attack starts and then stops, and the instruction happens. Okay? So basically, what you end up with is, hey, excuse me, do you know where 27th Street is? Give me your wallet. Okay. Now, yes, that's a knife. Basically, what I did is I initiated the attack, I stopped, and then I gave you instructions how to avoid me finishing the attack. See the difference in scripts? Okay. So that when we're talking about resource violence, we're talking a much, much higher level of violence too. Okay. Then you get the asocial. Asocial are the monsters everybody afraid of. This is a serial killer, serial rapist. And when people ask, what about lies? The instructions, he's lying. The difference here is with a resource, when I do this, I am threatening you with violence, yes? Giving you the option how not to. Once I get your wallet, your money, I'm gone. I'm out of here. So the goal of using violence is to achieve something. With process predators, violence is the goal. They get off on it. So, when you ask, what do people get things wrong with the movies, there's a really good breakdown of all the ways that people get things wrong. The trick is to recognize, am I dealing with this? Am I dealing with that? Because a really important element is social violence can be de-escalated. Okay. And you really should try and de-escalate it as much as you can. Asocial violence can only be deterred. Okay. So basically, he looks at it and goes, yeah, that's going to cost me too much to try it. So he goes after somebody else. There's overlap there, but the general idea is, can you de-escalate this situation? If you can, do it. But if by its nature it cannot be de-escalated, do not waste your time with that.
So deterrence. So what would be a deterrence strategy then?
Okay. Remember how I said I love stories that end with no violence?
Yeah.
Okay. My wife is sick, and I was going to the pharmacy to pick drugs for her. I'm walking along, and there's I can't remember the name of it, but in places where there's a thing called snow,
Yeah.
you often have the main building, but then they have a smaller room that extends out of the building just a bit, and that's like in supermarkets where they leave the carts. Right, it's the snow room basically. Well, because it sticks out a bit, somebody can stand behind the wall, and nobody coming out the door, unless they look, will see him. This is what I call a robbery spot. It's where bad guys wait, right? So I'm tootling, and I'm going in to get my wife's drugs, and I see kind of a shady looking character, right? Okay. And he's standing in a robbery spot. He's not doing anything except standing and watching people in the robbery spot. Not kosher. Right? So I walk in, I get the drugs. I come walking out, and I check. Oh, he's still there. Okay. So now I know I need to look again. So I'm walking towards my car. I check again, and he's following me. Okay. He's on an intercept course. This is like, oh man. I remember consciously thinking, oh, hell no. And I flipped the switch, right? So I have been told that I've never seen myself angry. Never seen myself on the clock, but I'm told that I'm rather scary, right? So I flipped the switch and went, right, and I spun around. And by the time I turned around, this guy had turned, and he was like a white-tailed deer bounding away with his little tail up, right? It's like he saw me change and was like, no. You know, all I saw was the soles of his feet as he was boogieing. How did I deter him?
You showed him that you wouldn't be an easy target.
I'd actually phrase that a little differently.
Right.
I went from a pudgy little, old man, walking out of a store into somebody who was going to play show and tell with his vital organs. Okay. I wasn't trying to communicate, don't mess with me. I'm not the guy to mess with. Don't see how tough I am. Right. It was like I was gonna rip his lungs out. Okay. Communication was kind of a byproduct. So his decision not to engage was based on the fact that, yeah, I was ready for him. Okay. I wasn't bluffing. Right. Which there's a term that Rory coined, and it is so true. It's called tactical blue balls. There you are. You're ready to rock and roll. And he backs down. It's like, no. Excuse me. Can I just take it here? Right. It's very frustrating. Right. And that's part of the adrenaline rush. Okay. And a lot of people really goof when they get somebody, they've deterred the person, but they're adrenalized. And it's like, what do I do with all this adrenaline? He's backing up. Well, I got to get that last lick in there. I got to say that last thing. See, so that's one of those problems. It's, the main thing is, how well are you under control of yourself and your actions when you're adrenalized? Say, and that goes into the violence that we were just talking about of like, oh, you just got to say that last thing, and the dude punches you for it.
I think that kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about. We're recording this the day before the 2020 general election, and I'm already seeing stores in my town board up. I saw a news article yesterday that celebrities are buying extra security. They're putting barriers around the White House. So it seems like in Walmart's taking guns and ammo off the shelves. So I put this thing up.
Very fetching.
I'll be putting this up, probably uploading this after the election. So this is my
it could be
thinking ahead here, but the possibility of angry mobs, both extremes, roaming the streets, is in some places is almost assured. So,
oh yeah, it's going to happen.
What are what might be a strategy if you find yourself suddenly surrounded by a mob, or if you find yourself its target?
Remember, I mentioned you have up to a minute before things happen, right? I mean, honestly, the guy that I told you about in the pharmacy parking lot, he didn't get within 50 feet of me. Okay. Time and distance. Tell your readers, writers, write this one down, kids. One of the things there comes a point of no return. Okay. And that point of no return is way further out than you think it is. Okay. As I explained to attorneys, there's a concept of immediate threat, right? And the way I describe this so they can understand, which again, we're talking attorneys who don't know about violence, is look, if somebody throws you out of an airplane, are you in immediate, the prosecutor wants to say you weren't in immediate threat until the last 10 feet before you hit. Okay. But a smart defense attorney will say, oh no, you were an immediate threat right after you were thrown out of the plane. Okay.
A difference, yeah.
By the way, how about we look at immediate threat and point of no return when somebody was trying to throw you out of the plane? Okay. Once you're at the plane, forget it. Same thing with crowds. Okay. One of the problems is we are so accustomed to having a TV screen or a movie screen between us and what we're seeing. We don't think that we're in danger. Oh man, check out what's happening, man. Wow, this is exciting. Okay. There's all kinds of things that you can avoid if you look at a crowd and go, that's a crowd. They're pissed. They're yelling. I'm going that way. Okay. Up to and including, you're driving along, you turn your corner, and there's a bunch of people in the middle of the road carrying signs and raising hell. Now, are you going to argue for your right to drive through them? Or are you going to sit there and go, oh gosh, what's happening? Oh, wow, they're very upset. They're coming towards me. Okay. Or are you going to bang a Yui? Right? Oh, like, nope. Yeah, but that's illegal. Don't care. Right? Getting out of there before they show up. You see a bunch of people coming down the street and you're running a business, lock the doors, close, sign up. It's hard to be raped, robbed, killed, or, beaten if you're not there. Okay. And one of the things, again, the book of Multiple Attackers that I talked about is people think, well, I can handle myself. It's like there's three of them. Right? So go 1, 2, I'm out of here. The odds are, unless you know how to handle multiple attackers, which people don't, right? You're going to lose. Okay. It's just flat out. The odds are with them. You get to a certain point and it's guaranteed. Right. So not being there. Okay. Hey, really good plan. Don't go into downtown Portland. Right. Stay out of downtown Portland. Okay. Downtown Seattle. Good idea too. Wherever the riots are happening, don't go there to see what's happening. If they show up and riots now deliver, DoorDash, no, Riot Dash. When they come into your area, lock the doors and back away. If you can get out of there, it's like, get out before they show up. If you hear, yeah, they're planning a protest, near your work, not coming in today. Work from home, right? There's no good answer for the average person. Okay. And going out there and engaging, just don't. You know, shootings are now happening at a high rate, right? Bullets are not really discerning once they're out in the air, you know, and you can't give boo-boos with bullets. Okay. Fall back to where it's safe for you. Now, one of the things that I'm, you know, well, what if they come to my neighborhood? You know what? Most of the time they're just marching through, right? They're raising hell, etc. That is a really big issue that, you know, like the McCluskeys in
St. Louis.
yeah. You know, that is, man, that is a booger of a case because there was danger, but, you know, did they have to go out and engage? Now, an argument can be made that they were legally within their rights. Okay. But what are you going to do? You know, now McCluskey himself came out and said that he understands, he understood the danger of a mob, right? And I mean, like I said, this book that I wrote it's filled with YouTube links about actual group violence and how violence happens. So you can see it. And once you read it, once you understand it, it's like mobs are beyond dangerous. Because remember how I said humans are very nonviolent? There's an exception. And that's when we're in groups. Okay? Flip the switch, we go psycho. Right? And that is where you alone against the mob, you're nothing more than a target. So there's no pride loss with getting the hell out of there.
So with all this talk we've been doing, I should mention I used to be a fire medical dispatcher, and so I dealt with a lot of cases of violence that I felt could have been avoided. But I want to make a distinction that there's a difference between saying it could have been avoided and blaming the victim. So what would you say if someone, I see the ferret face, what would you say to someone who says, you know, you should have got out of there. You could have got out of there. It's your fault.
Okay, let's back up a bit.
Or if it sounds like that's what we're saying.
Oh, no. There's two types of blaming the victim. So you've got a coin that's got two sides. Neither one am I particularly happy with. Okay. First of all, one form of blaming the victim is total abrogation, or whatever that word is, totally writing off any participation in the creation of the thing. I have seen this, and part of the real growly expression, I have seen this taken to the point of the people saying, well, a woman should have the right to walk naked into a biker bar and not be molested. Now, God, what was it? Wolfgang Pauli's famous line? That's not only not right, that's not even wrong. Okay, I mean, we left wrong in the rear view mirror there. Part of the claim of blaming the victim is one of the strategies in the 1950s and 60s was if a woman was raped, the defense attorney would go after, like, well, you were asking for it. Okay. So that was you're blaming the victim, right? Well, you know, I have a friend who, this woman walked into a bar in a see-through top, a micro mini skirt, right? And, you know, my friend was a bouncer, and he says, lady, you know, well, she came in with her friends. Her friends left. She didn't want to leave. And my friend was like, lady, please let me call you a cab. We'll get you. It's like, no, I'm going to walk over to this bar where they're at. And it's like, lady, please don't. Right. And it was a rough bar. Well, when they found her and she lived, thank God, she had 5 different sperm donors in her. Okay. Yeah, she was gang raped. Okay. But she left the bar. My friend's like, that was his area that he was under control. And he tried everything in his power to, Now, there are people who say, well, you're blaming the victim.
No, of course not. I'd say of course it's not her fault, but dressing like that and trying to walk to another bar was
You're
not
blaming the victim.
not very responsible.
Yeah, well, okay, as I like to say, you know what, ladies, a rapist is a runaway train. Okay, he is entirely responsible for his actions. Now get off the tracks. Okay, don't insist on your right to be on the tracks. All right. And, that's one form of blaming the victim, which is totally little Bo Peep never does anything. It's, they had no part and parcel in what happened. Yeah, actually, that was a really bad set of decisions. Could she avoid being raped by not doing them? Uh-huh. So are we blaming her for saying take responsibility for your own safety? Right? That's one form of blaming the victim. The other form of blaming the victim, well, anytime you get involved in violence, somebody's going to be unhappy with your decision. Okay? Doesn't matter what, somebody's going to be unhappy. When that someone has the power of the state behind them, okay? Now, one of the things that I've talked, since I deal with DAs, since I deal with lawyers, there are DAs out there who believe if somebody dies, there's a crime. It has to be a crime. And they're going to find any way to prosecute it. Okay. And blaming the victim in that case takes a different thing. I had a public defender from a particular district, and I'm not going to mention which one, tell me to my face that in this district there is no self-defense because the prosecutor is going to prosecute everything. Okay. And this was a case where the 64-year-old man was assaulted by a roofer, and the guy was beating him down, right? And they were gonna, they prosecuted him, right? Guy used a knife to defend himself. Now, again, finding an excuse where they like, okay, if we find this one thing, everything else you do past that isn't self-defense. Like Raul Rodriguez leaving the property in pursuit of a quarrel. There are self-defense cases, but self-defense cases are usually a slam dunk for the prosecutor because you already admitted to claim self-defense, you have to admit that you did it. Okay. Saudi, some other dude did it, is the most common defense for illegal violence. I didn't do it. Some other dude did it. The next common one is self-defense. The guy, it was self-defense, right? This is peeing in the pool of self-defense. When you claim self-defense and you are taking the burden of proof, and that's the wrong term way people understand it. The burden of proof shifts to you. You have to show and explain how you knew the danger. You have to be able to explain, I knew this. When I saw this, I reasonably believed there was a danger. Okay. Now, a cop, and I've seen this happen. I had a friend who cop asked him, he goes, okay, so how did you know a guy was attacking? And my friend says, well, he wasn't wearing a shirt, he was charging, and he was screaming. Right? And cop went, okay. Okay. Now, I've also worked cases where the DA decides, you know what, arrest this guy. He's not even there. He's not heard what you've said. Right? Somebody called the DA, I got this, and the DA says, arrest him, or somebody higher up. So the decision to arrest may not be made by somebody on the scene. Okay. I know another public defender who, home invasion, dude was like 6'4", came through the door. There were a couple of mistakes, but bottom line, the guy shot the home invader. He got prosecuted. Okay. And he asked the prosecutor, why are you prosecuting this? It's a home invasion. There's like 120-pound difference between these two guys. And it's like, well, he could have run. It's like, we don't have a duty to retreat law here. Okay. He was in his own house. Why are you this was a home invasion. Why are you prosecuting? And the DA looked him straight in the face and said, we don't want civilians or citizens taking the law into their own hands.
So could the police have shown up in the few seconds he had to really make a decision?
It wasn't from the police. This was from the DA ordering this arrest to charge. So, when you're talking about blaming the victim, again, that coin's got two sides, right? That number one, you have the people who are saying you have no responsibility for what happens to you and you can't do anything. You are the victim, which makes it part of the victim industry, right? They manufacture victims. The other thing is that they're going to turn you into the bad guy. It's like, look, I was the victim here. It's like, no, you're not. You're the bad guy. So either version of blaming the victim sucks.
So do you have a new book coming out that's Safety Doesn't Have to Be Scary? Is there anything else you want to plug right now?
Well, the multiple attackers is going to be very important for post-election, right? And that doesn't matter who. A lot of what's going to be going on, you'd really have to go work to get involved in. So don't. But if you find yourself in such a situation, you need to know how to handle yourself. So yeah, the multiple attackers, which is available now, it's ebook only because it's got so many video links. Somebody described it. It's like, yeah, this is like a PowerPoint presentation. Right. So it's not just me describing it. You actually see what I'm talking about. Right. That one is a big one. Hopefully, Safety Doesn't Have to Be Scary will be coming out next year because I got to edit it and get it, get all that stuff. But that one is that doesn't matter if you've decided to defend yourself or not. That is more for the families that you can share with people, that when you try and explain to them, this is dangerous, don't do this. And they go, that'll never happen. It's like, no, this is how it happens. In my original video, Street Safe, I did a thing, I called this 5 stages of violent crime, which basically boils down to the last 10 seconds before he pulls the gun. Okay, this is the guy that walks up and says, excuse me, right? Did you know most robberies start with excuse me? It's weird because they're pretending that it's not a robbery.
Have you tried flying under the radar in a few seconds or something?
Well, basically, social script and asocial, they're trying to use a social, script, and we really go into how to identify the difference in what you don't know can kill you. It's normal, abnormal, and dangerous, What is normal behavior? Can you explain normal behavior? What is abnormal behavior? Well, usually abnormal behavior isn't dangerous, but it actually has as many rules as normal behavior. And then you got dangerous behavior, which is unique unto itself. And I mean, that's so if people want, if they don't want to wait for the civilian version, which is safety doesn't have to be scary, or yeah, they can buy for their training and use that as augmenting it. The what you don't know can kill you, because we really go into helping you understand how things work and what you're not being taught. So yeah, 2 books you can get now, 1's coming.
I see you just started a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm also doing Patreon, which is kind of neat because the YouTube channel, I'll be releasing some of my older stuff there, but the Patreon stuff is more me expanding. Like, what's the difference between a robbery spot and a smoking spot?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's like, oh, I'm looking for robbery spots. Oh, there's one. No, dude. See the ashtrays and table and chairs? Yeah, that's a smoking spot. That's okay. That's abnormal, but it's normal abnormal, right? So it's how to spot and tell the difference. So on the Patreon page, which is MacYoung, I go into a lot of the stuff. I also go into physical stuff, which is, I've been so far involved in all this, legal and other stuff. People forget, yeah, I can still kick ass and take names. Well, this is the, fixing the martial mechanics is what I call it, of, if you're taught to block this way, that's not going to really that's a parry. That's not going to do you much good against a super heavy attack. On the other hand, this, which is good for against a heavy attack, if you have structure, is too slow to handle a jab. So, oh no, what do I do? Excuse me, could you tell me what you're going to throw so I know which block to use? Right? How do I fix what I'm doing so I actually do both?
Okay.
Right? So yeah, the Patreon is, I'm going back to some of the physical stuff as well as this new and expanded stuff.
So that link will be in the description. And it's come to my attention looking at the analytics that not everybody's been smashing the like button. So
oh no,
you really gotta be smashing it. If the screen doesn't crack, then you're not doing it right. So I need you to subscribe and smash that like button.
Well, the thing is, people who are looking for simple answers really don't like me. I just want to know, what do I do? I only need to know one thing that I need to do. No, life's way more complicated. And the deeper you dig, the more you're protected, but it requires skull sweat. And it also requires letting go of a lot of information that you think you know. My cherished belief is all I have to say is I was in fear for my life. Yeah? What are you going to do when the prosecutor goes, why? The answer is freeze like a deer in the headlight. Right? On the other hand, I can explain, yeah, he didn't have a shirt on, he was charging me, and he was screaming he was going to kill me. That's how I know.
Yeah. And the other guy was like, I guess I didn't think ahead. I didn't think there would be a follow-up question to that.
Well, okay, let me give you a freebie here. Any term you use, you have to be able to defend. Okay? A really good way to understand lawyers is they're like hackers trying to come through firewalls. They go down the line, they ping. They're looking for weaknesses. Okay? And you don't have to have like a total fortress to handle these, but you do need to be able to handle the ping. You need a firewall. Okay, one of the things that is very common with robberies is called a witness check. Okay, and it also with other types of violence too. Now, a witness check is, I'm going to describe it, is a fast look that an individual does to make sure that nobody's in proximity to stop them for what they're going to do. Okay. Now, if you say, I saw him do a witness check, as day follows night, you're going to get the attorney, well, how do you know he wasn't looking for his friend? Okay. Now, how do you answer that?
Well, you don't know.
Well, you,
Well, maybe you might know. Oh, no one else is around, so we're,
hang on. This is a witness check. Okay. This is me looking for my friends. What's the difference?
uh, behavior.
Yeah. See, behavior, and I mean, you saw it, but if you say, I saw him do a witness check, can you describe me looking for my friend? I'm actually, no, I'm looking for a guy. That's a woman. That's an old woman. That's not him. No, 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 no. Ooh, she's cute. No, no, there he is. Okay. My gaze behavior is slower. I'm actually looking at people, right? A witness check is just checking for proximity. And then what do I do?
Zero in.
Yeah. See, I zeroed in on my friend over there when I'm looking for my friend. Wait, I even changed my course. Okay. So if you can describe what somebody looks like while looking for their friend, when you get that ping, how do you know he wasn't looking for his friend? Well, duh. Right. Now, the thing about it is, I'm hearing something big rustling behind me.
It's like an animal, another kind of animal.
Oh, that's not big. That's a little one. That's a small one. The big one hasn't made his presence known. You know, you can defend what you're saying, right? Because what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and undermine you and make you doubt what you knew. Okay. Nope. I knew it. This is how I knew it. This is what I saw. This is why I reasonably believed. You know, so these are the games that attorneys play, and you have to learn. And I mean, honestly, you're in way less danger from physical violence than you are from attorneys.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. And that, by the way, also goes back to, you know, the possibility of riots. Okay. It's just, no, it's easier to avoid it. Right? Because if you have to do something, you're going to have to use a lot of force, and they're going to try and nail you for it. So feats, don't fail me now, is your best advice.
Thank you for that. And that's probably a good stopping point for today.
Okay.